So I want you to imagine something. Picture your phone, yep, the one that's probably in your hand or pocket right now, having a perfect, crystal clear signal absolutely anywhere on Earth. Not from a cell tower, but by connecting straight up to a satellite orbiting in space. Sounds like sci-fi, right? Well, we're going to break down how this is actually happening and what it's going to mean for every single one of us.
You know the feeling, don't you? That moment you're out on a hike, driving between cities, or even just in a weird corner of your own town, and poof, your phone is basically a paperweight, no bars. That super frustrating mobile dead zone is a problem we've all had. But what if I told you we're on the verge of solving it for good?
The scale of this problem is, well, it's pretty staggering. A full 90% of the Earth's surface has zero cellular service from traditional towers. Now, sure, most of us live in that other 10%, but that huge 90% gap, that's where we go for adventures, it's where natural disasters happen, and it's where having a connection can literally be the difference between life and death.
And this, right here, is where SpaceX just waltzes into the conversation. They looked at that massive 90% gap and didn't see an impossible problem. No, they saw probably the biggest market opportunity in the history of telecommunications. And their solution kicked off with a really simple but incredibly powerful idea.
They're calling it Direct to Cell, or DTC for short. And here's the absolute game changer. It works with the phone you already have. No special case, no clunky antenna you have to clip on. The real magic isn't in your hand. It's floating up in space. SpaceX has basically launched cell towers into orbit, except instead of standing still, they're zipping overhead at 17,000 miles per hour.
And this is the actual hardware that makes it all work. The best way to think about these satellites is that they have these unbelievably sensitive electronic ears. I mean, they're engineered to pick up the super faint signal from your little smartphone from hundreds of miles away in space, a signal that was only ever meant to reach a cell tower a few miles down the road. This is what one of those cell towers in space looks like before it gets launched.
And the speed they're moving at is it's mind-boggling. Get this, in January of 2024, they launched the first 6 of these special satellites. Just a few days later, they sent a text message from a totally normal, off-the-shelf phone directly to one of them. And the plan? By late 2025, they expect to have over 650 of them up there, creating a 4G coverage blanket that wraps around the entire planet.
Okay, but let's be real. Sending a simple text is one thing. It's huge for emergencies, for sure, but it barely uses any data. For everything else we actually use our phones for, streaming videos, pulling up maps, video calls, you need some serious speed. And the first version of this network, well, it just didn't have that kind of horsepower. That was going to require a massive power-up.
So, to make the leap from just basic text to a service that could actually compete with your mobile provider, StarLink needed something more than just a bunch of satellites. They needed more of those invisible highway lanes for all that data to travel on. And buying those lanes, it required one of the biggest checks ever written in the telecom world.
The secret ingredient for wireless speed is this thing called radio spectrum. The easiest way to think about it is like an invisible highway in the sky. The more spectrum you own, the more lanes you have on that highway. And just like a real highway, the more lanes you have, the more traffic you can handle without a jam, which for your phone means much faster speeds.
So, to build out their superhighway, SpaceX made a jaw-dropping move back in September 2025. They agreed to pay a company called EchoStar a cool $17 billion for its spectrum licenses. And this wasn't just any old spectrum. This was the good stuff, the perfect set of air rights that works globally and is already compatible with our existing smartphones. It was the one missing piece they needed to go from being a niche emergency service to a full-on global mobile network.
With that huge investment, a whole new world of possibilities opened up for the service. And with that new power, it was time for a new name, one that signaled a much bigger ambition.
The name change from Direct to Cell to StarLink Mobile is a really big deal. It's more than just marketing spin. It tells you everything about their new strategy. They're moving from being a simple backup for texts to becoming a full-blown mobile network. The new promise is an experience that feels just like the 5G you get on the ground, but delivered from low Earth orbit.
So, how are they going to do it? How do you build this global network? Well, it's a 3-step plan. First, they're going to launch their next-gen V3 satellites, which are 10 times faster than the ones they have now. Second, they're going to use their monster rocket, Starship, the biggest ever built, to haul these things up in massive batches at a time. And the end goal? A totally seamless 5G experience anywhere on the planet.
But here's the thing. SpaceX isn't the only company with this kind of ambition. When you have a market this gigantic, you just know a new space race is about to kick off. And yeah, the competition is definitely starting to heat up.
Their main competition is coming out of Europe, with a consortium backed by heavy hitters like Vodafone. And their whole philosophy is completely different. See, Starlink is building one giant, centrally controlled network for the entire globe. The European approach is more about creating a platform that local carriers can plug into. This gives the local companies more control and makes sure all the data stays within their borders. It's a classic showdown, one huge global system versus a federation of local partners.
All of this really funnels down to the billion-dollar, heck, maybe even trillion-dollar question for the entire mobile industry. What is Starlink's ultimate endgame here?
So when Elon Musk was asked point blank if Starlink planned to compete directly with companies like AT&T or Verizon, become a carrier you could just subscribe to, his answer sent a bit of a shockwave through the industry. He just said that would be one of the options.
That simple answer leaves us with two very different possible futures. The first one is what we'll call the partner model. In this scenario, Starlink just works in the background, quietly powering the signal for your current provider, like T-Mobile. Whenever you hit a dead zone, you'd probably never even know you're using it. But then there's the second path, the carrier model. In this future, you could actually ditch your current provider altogether and sign up for a StarLink Mobile plan directly.
Okay, so let's set aside all the corporate strategy and tech speak for a minute. Why does any of this actually matter to you? How could this really change your day-to-day life?
Well, on one hand, the upsides are pretty obvious. True global coverage means never losing your signal on a road trip again. It also means having a critical communication lifeline when things like hurricanes or earthquakes knock out the towers on the ground. But there are some big questions too. Can a network flying through space really handle the insane data demands of a packed city? And if one company ends up controlling the sky, could that eventually mean less competition and higher prices for all of us down here?
So, we're at this really fascinating crossroads. The technology to finally once and for all get rid of the mobile dead zone is here. The real question now is what kind of future that technology is going to build. Is it going to be a future of universal connection, a safety net for the whole planet? Or could it be the start of a new kind of monopoly, one that controls our access to the digital world from space? The race is on, and believe me, the outcome is going to affect every single person who owns a smartphone.